Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be comparing a Ram 1500 Backcountry to a Chevy Trail Boss Custom. This is going to be a battle of the affordable off-roaders. Now, before we get into the video, I do want to mention if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get right into the comparison. Starting with the Silverado, we have a turbocharged 2.7-liter four-cylinder that goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's good for 310 horsepower and then 430 pound-feet of torque. And so far, that's the only engine I've seen in these Trail Boss Customs, at dealer lots. Now, popping over to the Ram 1500 Backcountry, we have the 5.7-liter Hemi V8 that also goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's good for 395 horsepower and then 410 pound-feet of torque. So the Chevy actually has more torque than the Ram, but the Ram has a little bit more horsepower and, well, twice as many cylinders, but again, it's naturally aspirated. Now, popping back over to the Trail Boss. With the Trail Boss, you have 10.7 inches of ground clearance, which is quite impressive. Now, notice with the accenting there at the center of the hood, how that's all blacked out. Definitely cool from an aesthetic perspective, and gives it a distinctive look, even though they kind of took it from the ZR2. And then notice how the whole front end is dark. You got the Z71 badge, red tow hooks there, and just notice here at the bumper area, just kind of how that's all shaped to help out with ground clearance. You do get skid plates underneath as part of the Trail Boss package. And especially in this like sand color, it's a good looking truck from a front end perspective. Now, the Backcountry has closer to like 9 inches of ground clearance, so like almost 2 inches less compared to the Trail Boss. Notice with the 1500 badge there, and then you can see with the standard halogen lights. So both of them have halogen lights, so they're comparable from that perspective. Notice the fog lights down below, parking sensors, and then you can see the tow hooks there on the front end, with the bumper being all blacked out, which contrasts pretty brightly compared to the, well, massive contrast is what I'm trying to say between the blue and the black. It's definitely interesting from an aesthetic perspective. Definitely unique, right? Has its own little pizzazz and flair. Now, popping over here to the Trail Boss Custom, you guys can see here with the tire and wheel setup, it's off-road ready. So you have smaller diameter wheels. They're not massive, right? And then look how aggressive those tires are. And then you do get a 2-inch lift with the Trail Boss compared to a regular Silverado. That's one of the ways they get the extra ground clearance. The other way is with the more aggressive all-terrain tires. And then notice with the mirrors how those are blacked out just like the door handles. And again, I think it actually looks good from a side view perspective. Now, moving from that to the rear part of the truck, you guys can see here with the Trail Boss logo. We've got leaf springs, Rancho shocks as well. You guys can kind of see those better from this viewpoint. So more of a traditional setup from a spring perspective, right, using leaf springs. Now, popping over to the Backcountry, we still have, all-terrain tires, but they're not as aggressive as what you have over on the Silverado. And you guys can see here with the wheels, they have the cool blacked out design. There's a quick look at the front suspension. Both of them have independent front suspension, if you're wondering. And then notice how it's blacked out there on the side, got the Ram logo. Side steps, and then notice this one has the trailer mirrors, and you got that two-tone design there, so you can kind of see that from a side view perspective. Now, a big thing with the Ram is you've got coil suspension in the back end, and this doesn't have any sort of like branded shocks. It just has like off-road shocks is what Ram basically describes it as. So they're supposed to just be better for off-road use. Now, here's a key fob for the Silverado. Now, from a payload capacity perspective, the Silverado does have a better payload capacity. It's like higher teens with this package. And, part of that is having that four-cylinder. It's, lighter in weight, so it helps out. And then you guys can see there with the cargo light at the top and the Chevy logo. From a bed space perspective, if you get them both in crew cabs, the beds are pretty much the same size. So you're not missing out one way or the other from that. And then you can see here with the traditional Chevy taillights, got the Silverado logo, Chevrolet stamped into the bed, and then notice the bumper steps there on either side. Then from a towing capacity perspective, it's like right around the 9,000 pound range, roughly. Now here's the key fob for the Ram. Now it's got the remote start function on that. And then with the tailgate, notice how that kind of slow lowers down. Now, this one has a tonneau cover on it, which is an option. Notice the bed liner as well. And then you can see there LED bed lights on top of that. And like I said, payload's less in the Ram compared to what you have in the Silverado. But towing capacity is more, and we'll kind of talk about that in a second. And it's just kind of interesting how it all looks together with the tonneau cover and then 4x4 sticker there on the side. It's always harder to close tailgates when you have tonneau covers. It's kind of an interesting little thing. But finishing things off with the rest of the rear, what you'll notice here is you've got the standard taillights. So both of them have, you know, like base taillights and base headlights. All the badges are blacked out here on the back end. And then you can see here with the bumpers how those are blacked out exhaust tips, as well as the parking sensors at the bottom. So it definitely has a cool sporty look. Towing capacity, if you get 392 axle ratio, you're like right around 10,000 pounds with the Ram. Now popping back over to the Silverado. Got a base interior. Again, this is the custom, so you've got, you know, pretty basic materials with the seats, with the door panel, all that. The one benefit with the door panel is those are going to be easy to clean. Cloth seats, depends on what you get on them, but at least they're not perforated. You got that going for you. Rear passengers at least get some vents there in the back. The new Ford Bronco doesn't have vents, but the Trail Boss Custom does. Now, with this Ram, this is actually a quad cab backcountry. So notice the material use on the door panel here. It's significantly different from what you'll see on the door panel on the front, which is kind of funny. But you do get these seats out of the Ram Rebel, which is pretty cool. So they're like cloth and vinyl. I think they look better than what you have over in the Chevy. Then you get your cup holder vent situation and, you know, some charging ports and all that. Rubber floor mats. Quad cab is cramped, though, for passengers. So if you get crew cabs with both of them, they're both spacious. But again, with this comparison, quad cab versus, you know, the larger crew cab with the Silverado. So definitely take that into account, especially when we talk about pricing. Now here's the front door panel here with the Trail Boss. You guys can see all the window controls there, mirror adjustments as well. And then here are the front seats again with the cloth. You can see the bolstering with all that. Power adjustments there on the side. Then notice the pedal layout just down below. Got your parking brake right there, all the light controls here. And then notice it has 4-wheel high as well as 4-wheel auto, 4-wheel low, trailer tow mode as well. There is no button for locking rear differential because it just has the G80 system, so it does it for you. You don't have a button that you press. Notice the material used here with the Ram is a lot nicer in the front. That's one thing that's the downside with the Ram quad cabs, is they don't really make the quad cab door panel look nice like the crew cab. But anyways, here's the front seat again, stolen right out of the Rebel, so it actually looks pretty cool. Got the adjustments on the side of the seat, pedal layout down below, got pedal adjustment there. Notice we got the light controls there with the fog lights and the cargo light. Steering wheel is manually adjustable. And going from that back into the Trail Boss Custom, got our little gauge sweep. It's so many gauges all at once. It's kind of funny to see. Notice pretty bare from a steering wheel perspective. There's no controls other than cruise control on it. So yeah, windshield wiper turn signal stock. And so yeah, pretty simplistic. Column shifter. Again, you got the manual shift function for that 8-speed automatic on the shifter itself. And then moving from that, mostly analog for the gauge cluster. You do have that screen there in the center, which will show you different bits of info. You can see it pops on with the trailer tow mode when I turn that on or off. But again, simplistic is what they're going for with this truck. And then going from that to the infotainment system, we do have a backup camera with trajectory lines. And they do turn with the steering wheel, which is cool. And you can change it to the regular mode or the trailer tow mode. So that's definitely fun. And then as for the rest of the screen, response time's great with it. It's got Apple CarPlay, it's got Android Auto. And so even though it's not huge, it's a good infotainment system. And then down below we have a single zone climate. And then also got like lane departure, auto stop start. You got that for the tailgate, drop down, hazard lights, stability control, hill descent control. And then got actual outlet, which would be nice for camping, right? And then we have the bench seat configuration with this truck. And notice that you get under seat storage as well with the Silverado, which is pretty cool. But moving from that to the glove box, you can see you've got a double glove box. Definitely nice. And then, you know, material use there on the dash, again, pretty basic with that whole setup. And then you can see popping here to the top, Notice not a lot happening. Again, you've got a fixed window, you've got a manual mirror dimmer, and again, pretty basic truck. Now popping over to the Ram, ooh, got a cool animation there. So first off, what you notice here at the steering wheel is we got more controls happening, and you know, frankly, because there's, you know, more filled in, nice looking steering wheel, I think. Radio controls in the back, you got controls for center stack, voice command controls, all that, and then turn signal, windshield wiper, stock. So a little bit more from a feature perspective. And then here is the gauge cluster. So you guys can see with the gauges half analog, and then you got that screen there in the center portion, which you can scroll through a few different menus with that whole setup. And the other thing to mention here is we've got the infotainment system. So first off, we've got a backup camera with trajectory lines that turn with the steering wheel. There isn't like a trailer tow mode with the camera, so it's just lines like that. So yeah, and also if you can set it in the screen where they don't turn with the steering wheel if you don't want, so they have both options. As for the rest of the infotainment system, response time's great, and you guys can see there up in the corners, yeah, it has heated seats and heated steering wheel as wheel. Haha, see what I did there? And dual zone climate controls. So we've got some nice like luxury amenities with this particular Backcountry, and then you guys can see there with the trim at the top. And then down below we've got our analog controls there for the radio, dual zone climate system like I said, and then controls for the heated seats, heated steering wheel. And then notice with the parking sensors, your tow haul mode, stability control, trailer brake controls. And then you got the dial shifter. Notice 4-wheel auto, 4-wheel high, 4-wheel low. And then we have hill descent control, and we have an axle lock. So whereas the Silverado has the G80, this you can press a button. So that's nice. Then there is a quick look at the center console setup. And then notice it slides backwards and forwards. And you can see with the outlet there, some USBs. And then you got the phone holders as well. And then notice here with the dual glove box setup, got the Backcountry logo there on the front face. And then regular mirror, and then power sliding window with the Backcountry. And, well, let's quickly talk about pricing. So that particular Silverado stickered for just under $50,000. This Backcountry stickered for just under $55,000. So there is about a $5,000 price difference between these two particular trucks with how they're optioned out. And, you know, I've liked to have a more comparable video, but that's the only Backcountry I reviewed, and that's the only Trail Boss Custom I reviewed with the new body styles. So, yeah, did the best that I could manage. But capping things off this comparison, here's the deal. So first off, Silverado wins from a tire perspective, right? I think that's pretty obvious. And then also ground clearance is better with the Silverado. Now the Backcountry wins from a rear end perspective because coil suspension is superior to leaf springs from an off-road perspective. Now, I haven't taken a Backcountry off-road, and so I can't tell you from a shock perspective if those shocks are as good as the Rancho shocks, but I can tell you the Rancho shocks are really good at damping. So, you know, the Trail Boss might win from a shock perspective. I don't know. From an axle lock perspective, I'd rather have an axle lock that I can just press rather than having the G80 system where you have to sit there and let it spin for a second to figure itself out. That's just personal preference thing, so you guys can take that for what it is. Exterior styling, I think Trail Boss wins. The Backcountry, right, it's kind of interesting with the two-tone styling and everything, and it's, I don't know, it doesn't look like an off-road truck. Like that Trail Boss Custom looks like an off-road truck. Now, from an interior perspective, Ram wins. Definitely a nicer interior, but again, it's also $5,000 more expensive, so take that into consideration. And this Ram was a quad cab. If it was a crew cab, it would have been even more expensive. So also take that into consideration as well. And so, yeah, you know, these trucks are supposed to be comparable, but they're also so different from each other. And so I want you guys to let me know which one you would pick. You know, from doing this comparison, here's what I have to say is, if the Trail Boss Custom had a traditional rear locker and coil suspension, it'd be perfect. And then again, if that Backcountry, you know, had a bigger cab configuration and had more aggressive tires and a little bit more ground clearance, then that would be perfect. So there's some things that I'd change on both of the trucks. But yeah, there you go.